Hello, my name is Brody Dotzenrod, and today I will be interviewing my grandpa, Jim Dotzenrod. Alright, now let's get to the questions. What date were you born?
December 14th, 1946.
Where did you grow up?
In Windermere. I went to grade school, high school here in Windermere.
What occupation did your parents do for a living?
Well, my dad was an implement dealer and a farmer, and they had a implement and repair business.
What did they do in the implement?
Well, they sold tractors, mostly Minneapolis Moline. Later, that became White. GMC trucks and pickups, Bobcats, a lot of short line things, augers and discs and diggers and things like that. But farm machinery.
How many brothers and sisters did you have? Can you please say their names and how old they are?
Okay. Well, there was 6 of us. I'm the oldest. And then with my sister Marge, she was about a year and a half younger than me. And then Dan, he was also about another year and a half younger. And then Bill, who was about 2 years younger, he was born in 51. And then Patty was born in 53. And my youngest brother, Steve, was born in 1955.
What was your favorite food or snack?
Oh, man. Well, I suppose I've always had a sweet tooth. My favorite snack, I think, was things like Snickers bars. I always liked chocolate and things like that.
What was the most popular TV show?
Well, Bonanza was really big. My dad loved to watch the Alfred Hitchcock show, which I would quite often watch with him. So those were shows that were popular.
Did you watch any cartoons?
Oh, I loved cartoons. I watched a lot of Saturday morning cartoons. Yeah, Tom Terrific, Rocky and Bullwinkle, Yogi Berra.
What was your most favorite song or radio station?
Well, I liked when Elvis came along in the 50s, and that kind of changed music, and then rock and roll was really just starting, and so the early rock and roll things, and then the Beatles came in 1963, and that was a big thing and very popular, and I liked their music. I still have all of my Beatles records here that I've kept, and then a lot of the music that followed that, Led Zeppelin and so many of the other bands, the Doors, and that came in the 60s.
What did you want to grow up to be when you were little?
Well, I think when I was little, I thought about things that probably weren't very practical, but thinking the things like a policeman or a fireman or things like that. But later on in my youth, when I got to be in high school, I started thinking about farming, and I liked math and science, so I really wanted to get some education where I could use math and science. So I decided that I would become an engineer.
What was your favorite teacher in elementary school?
In elementary, Miss Barnick was a good teacher. She was good to all of the kids in the class, and I would be in the early grades.
What exactly did that teacher teach, or were there any good words of inspiration she gave you?
Well, this is an early grade school, and she was just very encouraging. I had a lot of difficulty with English and phonics, but she was really helpful with that sort of thing. Very helpful.
Did you participate in activities or sports, pretty much just stuff like that?
I did. I like track. I like to run. I ran the quarter mile or the 440. And I played football. It wasn't very big, but I became captain of the football team, and just really loved playing football.
Did you get any injuries from sports?
Not really. No, I can't recall any real injuries. So it was some sandlot football played in the summer, and where I broke a leg. A bunch of us little guys took on 3 big guys, and I got tackled and I broke my leg, but it wasn't a bad break. I had to have a leg cast on for probably 2 or 3 months.
What was your favorite class in school?
Like I said, I loved math and just about any of the sciences. I had one teacher there, Mr. Allgard, who was taught math and science, and he encouraged me a lot to pursue higher education because he thought I had enough interest and curiosity to make those things work.
Do you have any regrets about high school?
About high school, I don't think I have any regrets about high school. I mean, I did the things that I think most high schoolers did, and you know, I was striving to get good grades like most everybody else, and so I don't really have any regrets about high school.
When did you start thinking about a career?
Well, I suppose the problem with a career is that there are too many choices. It's hard to decide. There were many choices for me, and so I remember once asking my dad for advice, and he said, "No, I'm not going to try to steer you one way or another. You have to, if you make right decisions or mistakes, they need to be yours and not somebody else's that you can later on blame." So I decided to take something that was difficult and challenging. So I took engineering and went to science school for 2 years and then NDSU for 2 years and graduated with a degree as an electrical engineer.
What was your first paid job? What did you make an hour?
Well, I spent a lot of my high school and maybe later grades, high school and even college years in the summer working for my uncles and my dad. And they're running farm machinery. And there was always a lot of work to do. They also had cattle at that time. And yeah, that's what I did. And then in the summers, and that's how I earned money to the money I had when I was at that age. I got from just working at home.
How much would you say you got paid per hour for doing that work?
Oh man, I don't know if I can remember what the per hour rate was. I just don't remember. We worked by the hour basically, and I'd have a hard time. It seems to me I ended up earning about $50 a week, something like that.
Okay. When you were a young adult, do you remember how much each of these cost? A loaf of bread.
I think a loaf of bread was about 30 or 35 cents.
Can of soda.
I used to go down to my dad's implement shop, and the pop machine there was 6 cents. So you put in a penny and a nickel to get a bottle of Coca-Cola.
Sunday newspaper.
Nah, it would be tough. I'm going to guess it was probably about 15 cents, but I'm not sure.
Postage stamp.
3 cents.
A gallon of gas.
There was gas selling for 21 or 22 cents a gallon. That's my early memories of gas.
What kind of hardships was the world facing when you were a young adult?
I think the big thing that was a big worry for a lot of people and all over the world was the threat of some kind of nuclear war. There were many countries that wanted to have nuclear weapons, and we had what we called a Cold War with Russia, and Russia was building a big nuclear arsenal, and so were we. And there was a worry, and so there were people building bomb shelters in their homes. And there was a lot of concern that what would you do? What would happen? How would you protect yourself if some kind of nuclear thing happened? And we've signed quite a few treaties in the meantime, and that fear of nuclear war isn't top of mind. It's still, I think, something that is possible, but it looks like the world has, for the most part. Although you never know, there are people that terrorist groups that would love to get their hands on some kind of nuclear device, but it's just one of the issues we have to live with.
Speaking of wars, I know you were in the Army once. So what are some experience you can share from the Army?
Oh, okay. Well, when I was young, I wanted to be in the Navy because my dad has been in the Navy in World War II. He spent 3.5 years on a destroyer. I wanted to be in the Navy and see the world. But I ended up going to NDSU, and there was an opportunity there to take a summer camp with the Air Force officer training in Montgomery, Alabama for 6 weeks, which I did. I drove down there with another person from the area here and went to the summer training camp at Gunter Air Base in Montgomery, Alabama, and then got my commission when I graduated. When I graduated from college, on the same day I got my commission as a second lieutenant in the military, and then 3 weeks later I was at my first duty station, El Centro, California, in the Southwest Desert. And all we did there was test parachutes and parachute equipment. And they asked me if I wanted to volunteer to be part of the test program, and I said sure. So I went through a short training program, and then I participated in helping design some of the tests and operate the desert test range. That was most of my time there. I was in charge of a desert test range that collected data on all these tests we did on parachute equipment. And we did cargo, man carrying, and high speed recovery, which mostly were Vietnam applications. And there are many stories I could tell you about various types of tests that we did. But, that might take a while to go through some of those. But there was some real interesting experiments and ideas and tests. One of the big problems was we were losing pilots in North Vietnam. North Vietnam was shooting down our pilots, and they would eject, and then they would be when they parachuted to the ground, they would be captured and put in prison in the North Vietnam. And there was a lot of anguish and sadness over losing so many pilots, having them. John McCain was probably the most famous of those pilots that got captured. And so we did try to develop a flyaway ejection system. We never could get anything that was dependable, that we could feel was that could withstand the stresses of ejecting out of an airplane and be dependable. So it was something we tried along with many other. There was many other ideas that we tried there involving man carrying, cargo, and Vietnam or high speed recovery applications.
Oh, did you get married to anyone?
I got married when I got home from the service. A few years later, I got married to Emmy and had 2 children, Alan and Rudy.
Can you share some more details about Alan and Rudy?
Well, Alan was the firstborn in 1982. He's now 40 and is 40. What would that be? 43 by now, and he'll have a birthday in July. So he's an engineer as well, and he's working out in New England and at a Navy submarine base in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So he likes what he's doing. He likes engineering work, and I wish he wasn't so far away. He'll be here for Christmas though, so we'll get to see him here in about 2 or 3 weeks. The other one is Rudy, your dad. He was born in '84, so he just turned 40 last summer. So this summer he'll turn 41, and he likes farming, and he really enjoys it. He's good at it, and I have kind of more or less turned things over to him now, and he's running the show, and he's bringing a lot of new ideas, innovation, strip tilling, and irrigation, and a lot of the digital technology things are things he's bringing to our farm operation.
Well, is there anything you'd like to add to the interview?
Anything I'd like to add? Well, I've spent most of my adult life working as a farmer. And I started when I got home from the service. Actually, when I got home from the service in 1972, I had a job lined up as with an engineering company in Sunnyvale, California, and it's near San Jose. Today it's what they call the Silicon Valley. Had I taken that job and gone to work for GTE Sylvania, where I had interviewed, and I really liked the people there, and it would have been a fun job. But I got back home here, and it just seemed like there were a lot of things that I thought should be getting done that were not getting done, and I could see there was really no young people that were stepping up and trying to help make things work. So I just kept putting off going back to that situation that I had planned on in California. And one thing led to another. I had to call them up and say, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to have to back. Sorry, I have to back out of this deal. But then my brother Dan was a school teacher. He came home and started farming, and we started renting land and machinery from my uncles, and one thing led to another, and pretty soon 40 years went by, and our farm has been fun. It's been a fun thing to see the kind of things that happen when you can put machines to work and technology and make headway and make things work better for each year. It seems like each year agriculture is changing, and we're getting more and more production and more innovations and actually some new crops and new markets along the way. So and it's continuing to change. I mean, we're seeing that even now. And I guess that's going to be part of our future. But I had some interesting when I was at El Centro and I participated in the military program there. I made 171 parachute jumps at that time, and a lot of them were just on not just static line jumps, but some were high altitude, some were water jumps, night jumps. We got to do a lot of testing of parachute equipment, and I still have some of that parachute equipment here. I brought home with me lots of the pieces of some of the stuff that got discarded and thrown away that I kept, and I have a box of parachute canopies out in the garage, and there's a number of things that I have that around it are remnants of my time there in El Centro. But I don't think there's much else. I have hobbies like those old cars. You've seen me drive those old cars, those muscle cars from the late 60s.
Yep.
Those are a fun thing to do, and I just redid a pickup and got a new motor, and that's beautiful in a 78 GMC. So, yeah, I guess those are the things that keep me going is hobbies, and there's some also I think, Brody, that I like the old baseball cards, and I've got quite a bunch of those that are graded, and they're just a lot of fun to pay attention to what's happening with in that business, and it's probably important to me because it reminds me of those days when I was a kid and watching the baseball teams that were very good when I was in the 50s and 60s when I was younger. Outside of that, things are good, and I appreciate you taking the time to, ask these questions, and I hope that we got enough here to make it worthwhile.
Thank you.
Okay?
Is there any last things you would like to say?
No, I think I've covered, sometime when we get time, I'm going to tell you some stories about some of these tests we did at El Centro with parachute equipment, and some what we would call malfunctions, some things that turned out that ideas we tried that worked and some that didn't work. But that would get to be a little bit long to get into that. We'll get into that'll be a time for a different discussion. Okay?
Okay. This is my Grandpa Jim. I want to thank him for agreeing to this interview, and that's it.